their champion is the top group of 5 champion, but Tulane losing last night sort of helped Boise out.
That's correct.
Probably helped Army out a little bit, but at least one group of 5 got in there. Boise, if they lost today, Tulane losing last night, probably ended little EG's chance of getting 2 group of 5s in there.
God,
but it made it to the final weekend.
Listen, she deserves credit just for being in the final weekend with that prediction. We laughed her off the show. Yeah, but a loss for Boise would probably end their first round bye, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be the biggest takeaway from this is Boise loses the bye. I think Boise's still in. They would just lose the bye.
Georgia Tech and Georgia, good old-fashioned hate, is tonight, 6:30 primetime on ABC. Georgia, if they win this game, they're in the SEC championship, so they're in the playoffs, win or lose, unless they lose this game against Georgia Tech. In that case, if they lost to Georgia Tech and lost the SEC championship game, I could see a path that they're not in the playoffs.
Hey, there's nothing worse than waking up to a plumbing problem. Don't get caught in a flooded house. Call the guys at Hemp Hill Services. Adam, Chad, and the team at Hemp Hill are the only ones I trust to fix it and fix it right the first time. Hemp Hill Services does it right and always at a fair price. For all of your plumbing, cooling, and heating needs, trust the name that Birmingham has trusted since 1954. That is Hemp Hill Services. Call now, 205-229-2090. That's 205-229-2090.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
Are you tired of buying your CPAP mask and supplies online only to be disappointed? It's time to visit CPAP Plus, your locally owned and operated CPAP shop that prides itself on personal service. Come see what you're buying at CPAP Plus with 3 convenient locations in Pelham, Highway 280, and now open in Trustful. Drop by for a free CPAP checkup and free filters, no appointment needed. Plus, sign up for their giveaway for a chance to win a free travel CPAP machine. Just Google CPAP Plus or visit any of those 3 locations.
Man, I love a good meal. I'm Jim Dunaway. A good meal is what you get with my friend Sterling at Champy's Chicken on Highway 119 in Alabaster. We're talking great southern fried chicken, wonderful sides, hand-cut chicken fingers, po' boys, and those Mississippi Delta recipe tamales. You got a perfect menu for everybody. Champy's Chicken is perfect for watching the big game, or taking a meal to the lake house, down to the coast, or stay in the restaurant and dine in a great atmosphere. It's all made fresh to order right there on 119 in Alabaster, Champy's Chicken.
This hour of The Next Round is presented by the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, now featuring 7 days of giveaways with your chance to win a share of up to $125,000. The more you visit the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, the more chances you have to win.
Jim Dunaway, Lance Taylor, Ryan Brown. Live from the Birmingham Racecourse Casino Studios, The Next Round, presented by Bud Light, is on now.
Rolling on hour number 2 of the show up here as we do what is now show number 839 today. 839 today as we do our Black Friday show. As always, we're up here, partial crew, as we give a lot of our friends the day after off today. LT off today. Little T is working from a remote location. EG was going to be working from a remote location until she surprised us. It came rolling in. We thought we were working skeleton crew up here today.
Is she going to read 4 downs? I mean, we can at least read 4 downs. What's EG going to do?
I think that's a little beneath her now to read 4 downs.
Wow.
Well,
thanks, Jim.
No, I'm just saying
I
that
only get to read it 1 day a week.
Yeah,
that's how low on the totem pole.
That's the ones you do. But that's what we sort of force-fed that to EG when she was first hired to, try to get her some reps of practice on air back when she sucked on air. And I'm kidding, EG. I'm kidding. Monday morning live as we get going here. Welcome in. I'm Jim Dunaway. ESPN's Tom Luginbill is the star of the show. We're here to pick his brain over the next 60 minutes. Coming off Rivalry weekend, going into the conference championship games, probably the most important college football playoff rankings coming up at Tuesday night. I'm going to start off with the playoffs, then we'll talk about the games, probably finish with some Coach of the Year awards and some playoff thoughts, and just sort of put a bow on the season. But I think it's as simple as this, Lugs. You tell me if you agree or not. If SMU wins the ACC championship game, Alabama is in. If Clemson wins the ACC championship game, I'm going to start over because I want to get it right. You ready?
I was following you. You're good. I was following you.
Okay. I think it's as simple as this, Lugs. If SMU wins the ACC championship game, Alabama's in. If Clemson wins the ACC championship game, Alabama's out. That's the way I think the committee will play it. What say you on this Monday Morning Live?
I probably would agree with that. I have a hard time believing with the body of work and the season that SMU has had overall and the discussion that has taken place the last 2 to 3 weeks about whether you should be punished for playing in a conference championship game, being at risk to lose, having to play that extra week. That does carry some weight. I don't see the loser of the ACC championship game, if it's SMU, being left out. Now, the question that I think is even more intriguing, and it seemed to really bubble up this weekend, is how does the committee view Alabama and South Carolina? We know what the head-to-head is, right? But when you start to talk about those two teams and where they're slated right now, you kind of have to get into that discussion of bad losses, right? And I've never really been of the belief that you subscribe to that all that much. Obviously, some teams are worse than others, and that's a reality. Where I think South Carolina would have an advantage is they really don't have any bad losses. All right, they've got some really good wins. The head-to-head, and we always talk about with the committee how much stock they put in the head-to-head. And they say they do, but they also weigh that against what they think a team is right now. And I think a lot of people feel like South Carolina is one of the best teams in college football right now. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I do value head-to-head. And so I think that's going to be very interesting down the stretch too.
Yeah, head-to-head's important, but you're going bad losses. And Clemson's losses are to better teams. But by the committee's standards, Alabama's losses are to bowl teams. Tennessee will be a playoff team. Oklahoma and Vanderbilt both are bowl teams. The head-to-head matters. And then at some point, I do believe the committee values this more than they value bad losses, is they value quality wins. Now tell me, other than Clemson other than Clemson this past week, give me South Carolina's big quality wins.
Well, let's see. They've got Texas A&M, correct?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, and I'm drawing a blank.
No,
here.
you can stop there. That's it.
That's it, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, that's it.
That's their quality win, and so. You're not wrong when you're saying that, but at the exact same time, I look at them right now and I see them as being a problem. And I think the committee will see that as well. But the head-to-head to me is the deal breaker.
Yeah. Have you ever done the playoff process?
The mock?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's fascinating. And it is long, arduous, and if anybody had the opportunity to go through it, you would come away with an entirely different outlook.
Right.
In relationship to the process of it, what you value, why you value it. You would see numbers and data points and metrics that you've never even heard of, and then have them explain to you as to why they matter. But at the end of the day, and I firmly believe this, I think the coaches in that room run the room.
Yep.
And I think they should. Because quite honestly, I think there are people in that room that are not qualified to be in that room.
Yeah,
And
I agree with you. Some administrators are in there, and they don't know football is like the coaches do.
yeah, I mean, you've got professors at universities that have been in there. It's just odd to me, some of the people that are in that room that don't belong in the room. But I think a lot of times when that happens, the voice of the coach carries a lot of weight because they've lived it. They've been on that sideline. I think the eye test comes into play. I think positional value, the trenches, the quarterback position comes into play. And quite honestly, I think that's one of the main reasons why Florida State was left out last year. I think that committee, I don't think it was right, but I think that committee looked at Florida State and said, without that quarterback, I don't know.
Yeah, they're not one of the 4 best teams. That was last year. This year, we got their 12-team playoff coming up. We'll get the next to last final rankings coming up tomorrow night. That'll happen at, I believe, 6 o'clock Central Time on ESPN as they'll break that down. It'll be very interesting to see where Miami is. I expect them to be comfortably behind Alabama. And as a reason I brought up the whole process is they do it sort of in little pods all the way down. They don't just do the 12 or the 25. They do it pods all the way down. And I think the way it will work out is you'll get the 3 lost teams in Miami, the 3 lost SEC teams in Miami being evaluated together. And I think as they evaluate those, it will stack out like this: Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Miami. And that's how I think that final little pod will go. And that should be around 11, 12, 13, and 14 in the rankings when they come out. But we'll see if I'm right or wrong. It is 13 humans, and it's not a computer in there. You guys have a lot of things to say in the chat room. We'll get to the Iron Bowl results and all the other great rivalry games on a fun weekend. Remember, the show, Monday Morning Live, is brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Wonderful opportunity right now to jump in at mybookie.ag, make a deposit, and get a 300% deposit bonus for the casino there. A lot of fun casino games you have at mybookie.ag. If you're waiting for games to start, or you're at halftime, or just want to kill a little time at work, mybookie.ag can make it. A little blackjack action, some other stuff. 300% deposit bonus right there in the casino. Also, you get all the great bonuses you get when you make your deposit at mybookie.ag to play the games. NFL football tonight. Got more basketball all week. The ACC SEC basketball challenge this week. Play it all at mybookie.ag. The promo code is next round, no space, next round. Put those together and jump in and enjoy our friends at mybookie.ag with that deposit bonus. Okay, Iron Bowl first. And Alabama gets the win. They've now won 5 straight Iron Bowls. That's Alabama's longest win streak in the rivalry since Bear Bryant won 9 straight in that dominant decade of the 70s. Auburn had a 6-game win streak, fear the thumb, Tommy Tuberville. So Alabama's on a little bit of a roll. But it was major for Kalen DeBoer because it was his first one. And replacing Nick Saban, rarely did they lose in Tuscaloosa, and Kalen DeBoer kept that going. 28-14. What'd you think of Alabama winning this football game against Auburn?
I thought Alabama looked exactly like they've looked all year long, right? Some real flashes of bright moments, some frustrating head scratchers. Again, 4 turnovers. To me, they are so frustrating to watch because you can see that they're oozing with talent, but every single thing, Jim, seems hard. It just seems like it's such a struggle at times. I thought for the most part, Jalen Milroe played well, and I think that he was the difference in the game. That and the fact that at the end of the day, when you maintain possession of the football and you're 12 of 18 on 3rd down, and the opposition, I believe it was either 3 or 4 of 12.
Yep. And
then you get into the red area and you're Auburn and you can't score, you're not going to win the football game, and especially if you're not the better team. I thought that was ultimately the difference in the game. They're a scary team because I feel like anytime they step on the field, depending on what comes out of the tunnel, they could beat anybody. And then at the same time, they could lose to anybody. And they're a frustrating team to watch right now.
I thought the defense really corrected some things that bit them in the butt against Oklahoma, because I just thought Jarquez Hunter would have a field day running off the edges, and he did not. And to me, I thought Alabama's defense played fantastic, specifically once Auburn got into the red zone, holding them to field goals a lot of times.
Well, holding them field goals, but the difference between the Oklahoma run game defense and this one is you're not having to defend with an extra hat in the box because you weren't worried about the quarterback run the way Oklahoma gassed you on quarterback run. I think that's the difference. I thought they controlled the line of scrimmage very, very well. You're right. And, as we said last week, this offense needs to run through 27 and number 8. And when one of those two elements is missing, then it goes on to Peyton Thorne's shoulders. And I don't think this is a quarterback-centric offense, obviously. It needs to run through other channels. But the red zone offense and the inability to convert and maintain possession of the ball on third down and get off the field on defense on third down for Auburn was a difference in the game.
Yeah, I thought so too. So for Auburn, they miss a bowl game, and it's all about recruiting now for Hugh. Coach Freeze, as he gets ready to go into another off season. National Signing Days this week. Early signing period opens up this week. And right now, Auburn's projected to land a top 5 class. Do you like the trajectory of the program? Obviously, you know better than anybody else how bare Auburn was.
Yeah, no, I do. I think it is so much more difficult to project than ever before now because you don't know the pieces of the puzzle and whether they're going to be there or not in a year or 2 years. So what happens this coming Wednesday? And then what happens on December 9th when the transfer portal opens? And you may have a shift in 25 to 30 to 35 to 40 players. And what looks great on paper may not be what's on the field in a year or two. Because now in recruiting, you might be the belle of the ball in the moment, and the moment something doesn't go well, the player's gone. And you got to somehow recycle that all of the time. I think it's really, really difficult. I think that's the reason Gus Malzahn resigned, got out of there, and is going to go just call an offense because he knows that a place like UCF in the Big 12, they can't compete in today's landscape. They got no shot, and you're just banging your head against the wall. I don't think that's the case at Auburn because I think Auburn has resources, but it is just so difficult to tell. They got to correct the quarterback issue, clearly. I do think they've got some nice young nucleus pieces, particularly on defense, particularly with some of those freshmen that played in the secondary and in the defensive front. If you maintain your roster and you're able to carry over 2 or 3 classes without mass attrition, then I think that they could be in a great spot. But I think this is something that's going to be targeting everybody in college football. Is how do you do that every year, Jim? Like it's becoming impossible.
It is. It is a very fluid roster situation. And now imagine if you're playing in these conference championship games and then the portal's opening up and you're playing and preparing for playoff games and you're trying to hold a roster together, it becomes chaotic. Alabama wins, and now the path is still there for the playoffs. But let's say things don't go Alabama's way and they miss the playoffs. 9-3 first year, that was sort of the floor. In the preseason projections, we said 9-3, missed the playoffs, not a bad first year for Kalen DeBoer. They still may sneak into the playoffs at 9-3, so we're not saying that's over. But if there's no playoff, 9-3, Kalen DeBoer this first year, what faces him here on signing day? Projected top 5 class again as well. But then you have the same issue, right? The portal awaits for Alabama maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting there. I talked to more coaches this fall during their bye week who literally sat down with every player on their team to discuss whether or not that player is going to be there. Can you imagine doing that in the middle of the season, trying to figure out, hey, do I need to prepare for replacing you? Or are you going to be here having those discussions in the season while you're trying to win a football game? And you're doing that because of this coming Wednesday and because of December 9th with the transfer portal opening. And the attractiveness of a program like an Alabama, an Auburn, for example, an Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, whatever it may be, it used to carry the weight for the entirety of a recruiting class. Now it carries the weight for the immediacy of the recruiting class and no guarantee of anything else. Like, we're not talking about kids going to places anymore because they're just in love with that place and they don't want to play anywhere else. They don't want to live anywhere else. Now this is the best place right this second. This place had the most money. This place had the most resources. And then if I'm not happy, I can just walk away and leave. So I'm not tied to it. I'm not bound to it. And nobody's immune to it. Where teams like Alabama and a handful of others have a leg up is they're still at the top of the pecking order in the initial phase, meaning recruiting, the transfer portal. They are a destination spot. But then it becomes about recruiting your own roster more than anything else to maintain some type of continuity.
I believe Kalen DeBoer will be very aggressive in the portal, more so than Nick Saban. You?
Yes, I would agree. Yes, I would agree with that. I think that the approach will be different. The outlook on going out and saying, hey, we got to be better here, 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 or here. And if we don't feel like an impact freshman is going to come in and do that, but we see somebody that's out there that's, let's just say, played 2 years. I think the other thing, too, though, you want to make sure that if you're going to cast your line in those waters, you can't do it with a bunch of one-and-done guys. You have to do it with some guys that have multiple years of eligibility. So, again, you create some type of carryover and consistency for a couple of years. That I think is important. I think that will probably be a target for them. And to be honest with you, I think that they should do that. I think they need another big time wideout to complement Ryan Williams. I don't know if they have, it's not like a situation where they got a Jerry Jeudy and a Calvin Ridley and a so-and-so and a so-and-so all on the field at the same time.
Right.
That's not who they are right now. So I think they can improve there. That would be potentially important. And then I'm going to be very interested to see what happens at quarterback with them. Not just with Jalen Milroe, but what happens with a Dylan Lonergan, a Ty Simpson, an Austin Mack, how that thing plays out, because those people are going to be targeted as well in the transfer portal, whether they're in the portal or not. Everybody's looking for a quarterback. So how do you keep yours?
That's right. And you got a 5-star who's coming in, so that is expected to sign on Wednesday. So
by the way, he's really, really good.
Yeah. Was at one point a SMU commitment, flipped to Alabama, and has continued to rise up the recruiting board. Should be really exciting in the future there. But the here and now, we'll get your comments from the chat room about the Iron Bowl win from Alabama, the playoff possibilities, and then we'll get into the other rivalry games around the country. The show being brought to you by our friends at Gutter Cap, a 29-degree icy morning here in the Birmingham metro area where the show originates from. But C. Stu and his crew will get up there and clean out your gutter one last time, and then they'll cap it, and you never have to worry about it again. What a great Christmas gift for your home, for yourself, for your family, to protect your biggest investment, your home, by taking care of those gutters forever. It adds value to the home. You can call the number on your screen, 205-823-2212, or you can go to guttercapbirmingham.com, guttercapbirmingham.com. Free estimates and up to 45% off the retail price with our friends at Gutter Cap. Cap it, don't snap it. All right, Landmine Believer. We find out tomorrow if Alabama's chances are 100% with an SMU win, or 25% if Clemson wins. If Clemson wins, do you think there's a path that Alabama is ahead of SMU or an SEC team? You do?
Yeah, I do. Just because, and I know it's not supposed to be a part of the equation. Branding. The decal on the helmet. SMU is SMU. They've been battling that this entire season. If you take a look at how SMU has played and how Miami has played, not one time has SMU been ranked ahead of Miami leading into last week. They've played much better football than Miami has. All right. Well, Miami's got the U in the helmet, and SMU just came up from the group of 5. Right. Yeah. And so I do think that there is a possibility for that. Maybe not highly probable, but it's there. It's looming. The good news for Alabama is everything they needed to have happen this past weekend happened. Like that everything kind of just fell into their lap, and then they went and took care of business in the Iron Bowl, and so we'll see. I mean, you talked about Miami and where you thought some teams are going to be slotted. I'm of the belief that Miami would be 6-6 without Cam Ward.
Oh yeah,
maybe 7-5. Okay, that's how good Cam Ward is. That's how much he's masked their deficiencies. And the game that was played in Syracuse played out exactly the way anybody who's watched those teams thought it would. And it was going to be a shootout. And Syracuse, who, by the way, is 9-3 and beat UNLV on the road, but isn't ranked in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
But UNLV is. And Illinois is. Like, give me a break, right? So, and Duke still is 9-3. They're still not, ranked. And they're the one team that gave SMU the biggest run in their conference. So I think Miami's in deep trouble with the committee. I think the committee's just been waiting. They respected Georgia Tech a lot, right? So they didn't tumble them. They're going to tumble them this time.
Steve writes in, just not confident after the unforgiving debacle in Norman. Hard to set that out of that mind, out of the mind there. It was such a big primetime, high-profile undressing in that game by Oklahoma of Alabama. That is when you talk about a bad loss. It's not that Oklahoma is a 6-6 football team. It's the way Oklahoma beat Alabama. Yes. That's the one thorn in Alabama's side that could be. Especially if Clemson wins, that could leave them out.
And I think it's a thorn in their side all year long is optics, how they've looked, how they've performed. You referenced, coming into the season, how Alabama fans would view success maybe in year one and looked at maybe 9-3 as being the floor. But all right, good first year, you're taking over for legendary Nick Saban, you go 9-3. But I don't think people thought the 9-3 would look the way the 9-3 looked.
No. Big wins at LSU and got a win over Auburn, big win against Georgia, but losses to Vandy and then an undressing at Oklahoma. Not a great Oklahoma team there. Everyone's talking about strength of schedule for Alabama, how it ranks in FPI at ESPN and all that. That does help Alabama. It's helped them all season long. It's why they're always the highest rated 1-loss team, then 2-loss team, then 3-loss team. That's the way it all works out. Smuff says it's a moot point. It's like a cow's opinion. It doesn't matter when it comes to the conversation leading into this playoffs. And he also may be talking that even if they make the playoffs, there's not a faith that this team can go win football games in the playoffs. And that does feel different about this Alabama team compared to in the years past in the 14 playoffs, the one time they were left out and had to go play Kansas State. You felt like
I had that game.
Yeah, you felt like, well, that team could still have gone and won the national championship.
Oh yeah,
yeah, but they just didn't get in, and you always just felt like if that team had gotten in, they could have done something. This team, you just wonder, can they win one? Can they win two? I don't think anybody thinks they can win 4.
Well, Jim, we've talked about this all year long, like what it's going to take to actually pull that off. Like the type of team that you're going to have, which is going to involve luck. It's going to involve health. It's going to involve competitive depth, particularly up front on both sides of the ball. And quite honestly, it's going to have to require supreme execution. And you're going to have to be mature enough and talented enough to do that for potentially 4 separate occasions. I mean, that is daunting. Like, I don't think we've given that. Like, I've talked to FCS coaches about this and about that grind of a 2014 playoff, and you're trying to get from point A to point B, and what it takes to be able to do that. Like, and they're doing it with a roster of 63 instead of 85. So I just think in years past, when you looked at an Alabama team, even an Alabama team with a loss, Jim, because I kind of always felt like when somebody jumped up and bit Alabama, it was like, oh boy, here we go. Now it's going to be scorched earth. And that hasn't been the case. And you've lost a little bit of that element that I think you need in a playoff setting like this one.
Bruce Pearl's daddy, and this is something, Jarquez had 10 carries in the first half for 55 yards against Alabama. I think he had 3 in the second half.
Yeah, second half. Yeah.
And people are crazy, are going crazy in the chat room. Why would Hugh not stick to the guns there of what Alabama's weak at and keep trying to make Jarquez a bigger factor in that game?
My hands are thrown up, Jim. I feel like this is a broken record every week with how they've utilized him one week and not utilized him the following week. And it seems like it's one off, one on, one off, one on. And I understand that you can bang your head against the wall if you feel like you're not being successful or you've got a heavy box and you just don't feel like you can line up and run it. But I think you can get more creative than they've gotten. to set up some runs, to scheme some runs, and just do whatever you have to do to get the ball into that guy's hands and turn him loose. I mean, 10 carries for 55 yards. Well, if you just keep building on that, the yards are going to come. And the next thing you know, you're averaging 4.5, 5 yards a carry. Now you're rolling. You're doing pretty good. And on top of it, that's one of the reasons why they struggled on third down, because they couldn't get ahead of the chains in the run game.
Mike G says it was a must-win for Auburn to get bowl eligible. Good victory for Alabama, in his opinion. Michael, Bama's much better than Miami. I do think Alabama would beat a Miami team, right? Milroe would have a field day against that Miami defense.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy how good their offense is and how bad their defense is.
Well, and what's even more crazy, too, Jim, about that is that defense is littered with players that Miami beat everybody on. Like those guys, Reuben Bain and all them dudes that are playing defensively for them were recruited and offered and targeted by everybody. Top 10, top 15, top 25 players in the country are on that defense, and to play that way is just head-scratching.
Default name says Alabama can certainly beat Notre Dame or Penn State in the first round. The way I was reading Bill Conley, your colleague at ESPN.com, he sort of uses the BCS formula to lay out the bracket, and if all the favorites win, Alabama would be in with an 11 seed and would travel to play Notre Dame, a 6 seed. So Alabama at Notre Dame would be an interesting matchup, I think, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think, I've been back and forth on Notre Dame, and then I've really been tough on their schedule. I think I said this to you last week. 3 of the worst teams in Power 4 football are all on Notre Dame's schedule: Purdue, Florida State, and Stanford. All right. The rest of the schedule has played out to be very, very poor. You have Virginia on there, SC. You lose to Northern Illinois. And with all of that being said, when you watch them, they're really good. Like they have 2 areas that I think travel. They can play defense against anybody, and they can run the football. And Riley Leonard has slowly started to develop into this consistent mainstay of doing exactly what they need him to do, plus a big play here and there to kind of stabilize the football team. Their eye test for me is really, really impressive. I think they're going to be a very tough out in the playoff. And if they host a home game, there's no telling what the weather is going to be. I mean, that's another element to all of this. Could be very interesting.
Yeah. Well, see what you guys where are you from originally, Lugs?
San Diego.
San Diego. So you have perfect weather.
Yeah.
All you people who don't live here in the South, you're talking about your snow and all of that. I got one thing for you, baby. Ice, baby. Freezing rain. We get it all the time. It happens sometimes in December. It will be insanity if you guys have to skate on a football field and try to win a game. Snow is nothing. Try playing with cleats on an ice rink. Yeah. Ice.
You don't want wind and you don't want ice.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 things you don't want.
We don't get snow. We get freezing rain. We get ice down here. So that's a possibility.
And everything shuts down for 2 or 3 days.
That's right. There'll be no bread or milk in the grocery stores or anything. When we come back, more on the rivalry games that we haven't gotten to yet, more on the playoffs. I want us to hand out Coach of the Year awards for the 4 major conferences and a couple of firings yesterday. I'll get your reaction and walk our way through the college football bracket. 1/2 hour to go. The show being brought to you by Who Is Coffee. In my coffee mug every Monday morning, almost every day, is our Who Is Coffee Next Round blend. Scott Forester put that together for us. Beans from all over the world, curated with the best flavor. You can get the Next Round brand coffee by going to nextround.store, and just clicking on the easy link there. Set up a delivery plan like we have in the Dunaway house, and it comes to your door. Mine comes, I think, twice a month. So you can set up whatever you need on the coffee delivery right there at Who Is Coffee. Who Is Coffee. And also by our friends at Roback. I just got asked for our promo code earlier today, TNR20. TNR20 gets you 20% off our Roback gear there. Great golf gear, perfect gift under the tree, hoodies, and so much more. When you crave activity, you crave Roback. 20% off with the promo code TNR20. TNR20 with Roback.com. We're back in a moment on Monday Morning Live.
Follow Dunaway on Twitter and Instagram at Jim Dunaway.
There's only one Champy's world famous fried chicken. Poor boy's tenders, full fried chicken plates, and a little bit of the Mississippi Delta with chicken on a stick and hot tamales. On your way to or from the big game on Highway 119 in Alabaster, stop by Champy's Chicken.
Hey, you. It's the holidays. Give cheer a lift. And at New Balance Birmingham, we got the gift. That holiday vibe? Find it inside. Come together at New Balance Birmingham on Highway 280 right next to Chick-fil-A. New Balance Birmingham. We got now.
Storm season is here. Make sure you have a plan of action in place right now. Greg from Pell City and Storm Restoration Roofing should be your first call when storms hit. Insurance companies love working with Storm Restoration Roofing because of Greg Nelson's name and reputation in the industry. When storms hit, call Greg Nelson. He's local, 205-542-3531. He's the home of the free no-cost roof inspection. Greg from Pell City on Facebook, 205-542-3531. It's Storm Restoration Roofing.
Hey, there's nothing worse than waking up to a plumbing problem. Don't get caught in a flooded house. Call the guys at Hemphill Services. Adam, Chad, and the team at Hemphill are the only ones I trust to fix it and fix it right the first time. Hemphill Services does it right and always at a fair price. For all of your plumbing, cooling, and heating needs, trust the name that Birmingham has trusted since 1954. That is Hemphill Services. Call now, 205-229-2090. That's 205-229-2090.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, CoverCrimson.com and TheBarnAuburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. CoverCrimson.com or TheBarnAuburn.com. Sign up today.
This hour of The Next Round is presented by the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, now featuring 7 days of giveaways with your chance to win a share of up to $125,000. The more you visit the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, the more chances you have to win.
The World Wide Web is a large place. Find all your favorite people and content in the same spot. NextRoundLive.com is full of wonderful tidbits about the show you know and love. Find our gear, listen to your favorite personalities, follow our socials, and enjoy your trip to NextRoundLive.com.
Hang out with the Next Round on the go. Whether you're driving to work, running errands, sitting on the beach, or you just need a break from the real world, we can keep you company. Check out the Next Round, Mystery Fifth Hour, and our other shows on your favorite podcast app. We'll meet you there.
Back on Monday Morning Live with ESPN's Tom Luginbill, brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag, promo code NEXTROUND. Get you that 300% deposit bonus, casino bonus there when you go into mybookie.ag. You can use that in the casino. You get all the free spins as well that you see on your screen. It is an unbelievable deal at mybookie.ag, but also the sports book there where you can play the fun games there, including Monday Night Football happening tonight, or the ACC-SEC Basketball Challenge, which happens Tuesday and Wednesday, has Alabama at North Carolina, Auburn at Duke a little bit later on Wednesday night this week. Should be a lot of fun. You can always make it a little bit more fun. MyBookie.ag, promo code NEXTROUND.
I thought the Texas Tech coach had a very interesting comment after his win. And I had not thought of it this way, but this is one reason why I think it's been sort of a PR hit for the SEC this year, the way the season has played out. But think of it this way. A Big 12 team in their first year could possibly win the SEC if Texas wins on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
A Pac-12 team can win the Big 10 in their first year. An American Conference team can win the ACC in their first year, and a Pac-12 team could win the Big 12 in their first year. All four power conferences with their built-in egos could be won by conferences, new members to their conference from conferences they consider to be inferior in the past.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, when you really think about it now, we're talking about the class of those leagues being those other teams moving over. You know, Texas was built to be in a position to compete like this. Oregon was built to be in a position to compete like this. I don't think people forecasted the Big 12 that would come crumbling down, at least from a preseason prognostication standpoint of saying, all right, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Texas Tech are all going to be vying for the championship. And, you know, 4 of those 5 stunk. I don't think a lot of people saw that, which opens the door for Colorado and Arizona State and Iowa State. Good for them. Well, it is interesting, but you know that SMU team won the American. They were 10-3 a year ago. That wasn't a 7-5 team that came into the ACC. So they are legitimate. Texas, not a mediocre team coming into it. But it is fascinating how that looks. And listen, I think what we're going to start seeing, Jim, is everything's going to become more and more transactional, which is going to thin the herd, and it's going to disperse talent, and it's going to be really hard to maintain any sense of week in and week out dominance. And I think if this season has shown us anything, and I've said this over and over like a broken record on this show, is nobody's safe. The margin of error is razor thin, and if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a shot.
Here are the full BCS model rankings. Oregon 1, Texas 2, not rankings, excuse me, seeding.
Seeding, okay.
Oregon 1, Texas 2, SMU 3, Boise 4. That's if the favorites win the championship games. Penn State 5, Notre Dame 6, Georgia 7, Tennessee 8, Ohio State 9, Indiana 10, Alabama 11, 12, Iowa State. I ask you this, and the people in the chat want to know, Alabama fans in the chat want to know. You do the ACC primetime game, Tom Luginbill. Can SMU beat Clemson to help Alabama out? Why can SMU beat Clemson? How do they win the football game?
Oh, yeah, they can beat Clemson. I've had SMU 4 times this year, and I'll tell you, first of all, they are much better athletically than people are giving them credit for, and they are much better up front on both sides of the ball. When you go look at them, they can run the football, stop the run. They score on special teams and on defense. They are rarely, I say rarely, outside of this last weekend, they were heavily penalized. But they do not beat themselves week in and week out. Quarterback play has been outstanding. I think that they have enough talent, and then they do all of those other little things so well. And I don't trust Clemson to play to the level of their talent. I mean, Clemson the last 2 weeks gave up 288 yards on the ground to the Citadel. And then if you watch the South Carolina-Clemson game and saw what Lenore Sellers single-handedly did to that Clemson defense, they still haven't stopped him. Right? He's still running around in Memorial Stadium. I think that SMU is the better team, may not have the better roster profile top to bottom in terms of pure athletes. But they're just – I agree with you that if they lose the game, they're still in. And the reason why is because they're pretty darn good. But I don't think they're going to lose this game. I think SMU is going to win this game, and I think they're the better team.
Tom Luginbill of ESPN and the ACC Network. He'll be covering that game in Charlotte this weekend for the ACC Network and ESPN. He'll also be covering signing day coming up Wednesday, which is big for every team in college football, but especially those teams right now who have already moved into their off season. We discussed Auburn's chances of landing a good class earlier in the show. You can go back and watch that when that's over. Middle 8 follows us here. Brandon Marcello joins Ryan Brown. Our live next round show starts at 9 a.m. Central. Let's talk about the rivalry games we haven't gotten to, and then we'll circle back for some final thoughts at the end. Michigan did it again. They beat Ohio State. And my takeaway from this is I don't understand why Ryan Day in this game, especially this year, with all the wide receiver talent, with all the running back talent, with a mobile quarterback who he thought was better than Kyle McCord. I use air quotes because they're the same QBR quarterback when it's all said and done. Why he decided to play right into Michigan's hand and play this game in a phone booth. I think I saw a stat that they ran between the tackles 22 times in this game, Ohio State did. Why did he decide to play the game like Michigan wanted him to play the game?
Yeah, listen, and Joel Klatt actually touched on this during the broadcast. They kept trying to run their zone scheme against Michigan, which makes it awfully difficult. You got to gap scheme Michigan. You got to get into your counter game and your power and your lead and all those sort of things. So you have some angles and you have some leverage points that you can rely upon, because Ohio State's been racked up a bit in the offensive line. And to go against that defensive front, which is a load, they're a handful. It was mind-boggling to watch them pound their head against a wall. I think they got a little gun shy with Will Howard, to be quite honest with you. I felt like they coached scared because they were afraid of his decision-making, and I can see why. I thought that was the first time all year long where he did not look like he was ready for the moment and the magnitude of that game. But you know what, Jim? At the end of the day, how in the world does Ohio State, whose entire offseason was spent putting together this roster to win this one game? Forget about the Big Ten. Forget about the college football playoff. This roster was put together to take the heat off of Ryan Day to finally beat Michigan. And you let a 6-5 team with a walk-on quarterback come to your home and beat you. I mean, if there was ever, because this is what I personally think. I think that the arrogance of Ohio State and their view and perspective of this particular Michigan team led to a total lack of respect for the opponent. I think Ohio State thought they were going to walk into that stadium and run roughshod because they, quote unquote, had the better team this time, right? And to be honest, they deserved to lose. And how they handled the last 2.5 minutes of the game was brutal. The game management on the back half of that of the second half. And by the way, what world are we living in? How does Michigan not have a quarterback?
Yeah, well, they got one coming in. They got if he signs on Wednesday, they got him coming in.
Yeah, well, they got him coming in. Then you better hope like hell he pans out.
That's right. I will tell you, I thought it was a brilliant coaching job by Sharon Moore and the gutsy effort from those players to get the win.
It was.
A horrible scene at the end, pepper spraying players, just a nasty scene in a couple of places in college football. Texas A&M, man, you know, I never said it because I didn't want to be horribly wrong. And I'm horribly wrong sometimes. See what I thought Brock Bowers would be in the NFL. He's fantastic.
Don't worry, the internet will tell you.
Yeah,
you don't have to worry.
Horribly wrong. So I didn't want to be horribly wrong about Texas A&M. But most of my life, they played the Texas A&M rivalry, and most of my life, I didn't really dial into it a lot. I tuned in for Texas A&M, and it was a little bit of a letdown. It was. I mean, it was a rivalry game. I'd seen a lot more juice that weekend already. It's people who hate each other. We got that in several places every year. It's a big, loud stadium. We get that in several places. It was a big dud for me. Texas won it in a fairly boring football game. Longhorns win. What'd you think of the Lone Star shootout?
Well, my initial reaction when it was over, I was like, man, for all of the fluff and all of the talk and all of the hype, Texas A&M is right back where they always are, 8-4.
Yep.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, I'd said that, wait a minute, what's their record? Oh, well, they're 8-4. Of course they are. They're Texas A&M. What are we doing here? I actually thought Texas played really well. This was a better optical game in terms of what Texas, I think, is capable of for them heading down the stretch here, which was a positive for Sark. I thought they walked in there like they were playing in an empty stadium. They were unfazed. I thought they, for the most part, controlled the game. They are, to me, and I understand they've received a lot of criticism, but they're a little bit like Georgia to me. When they turn it on, they're really, really good. They're really good. But just like anybody else, and more so this year than in years past, if they don't have their A game, they can go down. That's what the SEC championship game is going to be. I just think a fantastic matchup.
Yeah, rematch there, and it could be the first of 3 meetings between Texas and Georgia. So we'll see if that ends up panning out. All right, couple of more quick things before we wrap things up here. About 10 minutes left in the show. I did want to touch on, should Ohio State have a home game in the college football playoffs? Because they're not in the Big Ten championship game now.
Yeah.
How far do they fall? The way the computer has it bracketed out has Ohio State traveling to Tennessee. That could be the discussion there. Home game for Buckeyes or Tennessee. Did Ohio State kill their chance for a home game in the playoffs with that loss?
Potentially. I think the committee is going to look at this one of two ways. They're going to say, you just got beat at home by a 6-5 team. We're tumbling you. Or they're going to say, on rivalry weekend with big rival games where anything can happen, we're going to cut you a little slack here. I would do the former. I think that loss on Saturday was inexcusable for them. I really do. And so it'll go one of two ways for the committee, in my opinion. How much do they value it being a rivalry game?
I'm not sure Georgia can get a home game after the scare with Georgia Tech. If they win the SEC championship game, they get a bye, obviously. And if they lose it, they may slip to the 9 line, somewhere around there.
Where did the BCS deal have? Would they be playing, Indiana?
They have them 7 at home with Indiana visiting them. Yeah.
Okay.
But that Georgia Tech game was so entertaining, and I went in with no expectations. And then Haynes King was tremendous. Haynes King, 563 yards of offense for the team. He had 303 passing, 110 rushing, and 5 total touchdowns. And the kid was banged up, not 100%, a warrior effort from him. But my buddy Ryan Brown tells me they got to go for 2 in that first overtime. So I said, Brown's usually right about these kind of things. So I went and checked, Brownie.
Go for 2 every time there, Luke. Go for 2.
I went and checked. They missed their first 4 2-point conversions, I think. So you would have lost the game if you went for 2. They were 1 of 7 in 2-point tries in overtime.
I see where people are coming from on this, though. I mean, you're quote-unquote not supposed to be in the game to begin with. You're on the road. We've all heard it before. Let's just get the thing over with. You've got 1 or 2 tricks in the bag that you could pull out that maybe you wouldn't have utilized on a previous 2-point play or a short yardage play, and just get out of there. I actually agree with Brownie on this one. I was kind of watching this thing going, all right, end it right here. Let's go. Just get out. And they chose not to do that, and it ended up in that instance costing them. I thought the game was fantastic. Who knows what Tech's record could have been had Haynes King not missed 3 games due to injury. But what a performance. I'm still trying to figure out how 2 flagrant targeting calls were not even discussed in that game. One was on Georgia Tech. The other one was on Georgia. The one that was on Georgia, on Haynes King, ironically, changed the game.
The Dan Jackson hit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you watch him lower his head, launch to the head or neck, and you watch the chin of Haynes King, and they don't even discuss it. It's not even, I mean, if I would Brent Key there, I'd have been losing my mind and stalling to get them to buzz down Say, guys, just look at it. Don't just act like it didn't happen. So I don't know. I thought that was strange.
I saw the violent hit, but when I watched it, did his helmet hit the ball, or did it hit higher?
His helmet hit Haynes King's chin right up under his neck. And if you watch Haynes King's head, watch his head, and it was at, again, the crown of the helmet's that 6-inch diameter right here. And if you watch Jackson, he comes in and he lowers it and goes right up. And remember, you got to have indicators. Is there a crouch? Is there a launch? Is it to the head or neck area? All of those sorts of things. But all of those deals, whether you agree with it or not, you look at it. You can't not review that.
Well, and I hate to remind you that every play is reviewed. They just didn't stop play.
Yeah, exactly. Every play is reviewed.
Yeah, it is technically. So that was an entertaining football game. Georgia's in the SEC championship. If I asked you ACC Coach of the Year, I think you have 3 really good choices here.
Yeah.
It's going to be Rhett Lashley.
Fran or Manny.
Yeah, it's going to be Rhett Lashley, Fran Brown, and who was your other one?
Manny Diaz.
Manny Diaz. Oh, I've got Brent Key in there.
Yeah, well, the reason why I have Manny is Manny comes in, coaching change. They end spring practice with 45 players and don't have enough players to actually go 11 on 11 in their offensive line, and somehow went 9-3.
Wow.
So yeah. I don't know. I think Brent had some bad injury luck. I think the coaching job that he's done since he took the job has been unbelievable. They're only going to get better. And by the way, I don't know what decision he'll make, but Haynes King has another year of eligibility to come back. And they've got a situation now where they've got 2 quarterbacks. They're going to have to figure out how do they keep one or the other and not lose the young kid to the portal.
Yeah.
He's getting tampered with right now.
Well, I heard on your show yesterday on SiriusXM with Barrett Salih, one of the callers saying that the Denver Broncos should draft Haynes King. He's the next Taysom Hill. Guy can do anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was really good. Signetti will be the Big Ten Coach of the Year. In the Big 12, is this Primetime or Dillingham?
Either one I have no issue with.
Yeah.
I think both of them have done a remarkable job, come out of nowhere, and have just made huge strides with their football teams. That's going to be the toughest vote for Coach of the Year, I think, of all conferences.
And the SEC, who do you give it to? I know who I give it to, but who do you give it to?
Billy Napier.
Billy Napier. So no Shane Beamer.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's done a great job, but I mean, you got to understand. I mean, how many buses have ran over Billy Napier in the last 4 months?
Yeah.
Right? Like
both in drive and in reverse.
In drive and in reverse. And to do what they did with the quarterback situation they had, how they started the season, the cloud of negativity that just never dissipates. And that team could have folded their chair I don't know how many times. I'll tell you right now, if they played Miami again, they might hammer Miami.
Yep.
Again, what do we always talk about, right? Who you play, where you play, but when you play.
And when you play them. They're a different football team here at the end. All right. To reset our top story, I think Lugs agrees with me. SMU beats Clemson. Alabama's in the playoffs. Clemson beats SMU. Alabama's out of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. You agree with that?
I do agree.
Now,
I do agree with that.
Can you give me a prediction of the game, or is that against your ACC contract? Do you think SMU wins it?
No, I'm not calling the game.
Okay.
I'm working on all the pregame and all this and that, so I'm good there. I get to see my boy McElroy. McElroy is actually calling it.
Fantastic!
So I get a chance to see him this weekend. I think SMU will win the football game. If they don't win the football game, they will have done something to screw it up. That's how they lose, because they've played such good, clean football, and they have ingredients that travel. They stop the run on defense. They can run the football. The quarterback's dynamic. They don't turn it over, and they're not heavily penalized. They win.
Yeah, I worry about their defense stopping Klubnik running the football himself, but Maffa and what Clemson can do running the football. Are they man enough to get into phone booth and win a game like that?
Yes, they are. The defensive front for that team at SMU, and this is where probably Rhett Lashley deserves more credit that in an area that nobody's talking about, is he knew going from the Group of 5 to the Power 5, we have to come up with some linemen. And if you look at their 2 deep, you can go Google it. You can Signetti it. and just look at the schools where their linemen on both sides of the line of scrimmage are from, and they were all guys who had played at the previous stop. They were highly recruited guys, Power 4 players, and now they're all playing at SMU, and they're playing at a high level.
We'll have a great time watching it, and then we'll see the selection show on Sunday. This is our last Monday morning live of the year 2 of it. Hopefully there's a year 3, Lugs. Bottom of my heart, man, thanks for getting up early with me and doing this. I wanted to do this from the day we started this platform with you, and I'm glad you did it again this year with me. I appreciate you so much, man.
I appreciate you and thankful for you, and I just hope this thing goes on forever and ever.
Forever and ever. Amen. All right. Brandon Marcello, Ryan Brown, middle eight's up next. And then, of course, the next round at 9. Thanks for being with us. This is Monday Morning Live.